Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. Today, we will learn about the explosive drama unfolding in Port Charles on Tuesday, November 18th, where betrayals ignite and family loyalties are pushed to the breaking point. In the bustling corridors of General Hospital, tensions reach a boiling point as Britt Westburn, ever the fierce protector, grabs Emma's Scorpio Drake by the arm in a moment of raw intensity, dragging her into a private room for an unfiltered showdown. Britt, whose own history of medical mishaps has left her with a no-nonsense edge, unleashes a torrent of frustration over the chaotic mess Emma has unleashed upon young Rocco Falconeri, accusing her of recklessly pulling the boy into a web of teenage rebellion and poor choices that now threaten his future. Emma, caught off guard by Britt's aggressive stance, defends her actions with fiery passion, explaining how the lab incident spiraled out of control from what seemed like harmless curiosity. But Britt counters that such excuses won't shield Rocco from the fallout, drawing parallels to her own past regrets with family secrets that nearly derailed lives. This confrontation not only highlights Britt's deepening bond with the Falconeri clan, but also sets the stage for broader repercussions as whispers of the argument leak out, potentially drawing unwanted scrutiny from hospital administrators already on edge from recent scandals. Shifting gears to the Quartermain estate, where secrets simmer beneath polished surfaces. Giovanni Joe Palmieri confides in Brooklyn Quartermain during a tense afternoon tea that quickly turns confessional, revealing his unintended involvement in the escalating lab break-in fiasco that has ensnared Rocco. Joe, a rising musician with dreams of touring beyond Port Charles, admits how his casual suggestion to explore the university lab after hours meant as a thrill for friends backfired spectacularly, leading to vandalism charges that now paint Rocco as the prime suspect in a deliberate act of destruction. Brooklyn, drawing from her own experiences navigating the cutthroat music industry and family intrigues, listens intently before offering sharp insights on how Gio's well-meaning naivety amplified the situation, perhaps even touching on psychological motivations like the thrill of forbidden adventure that often lures young talents astray. As Joe unloads the weight of his guilt, Brooklyn pledges her support, hinting at leveraging her connections in the legal world through her mother Lois to mitigate the damage, though she warns that transparency is key to avoiding deeper entanglements with figures like the shadowy Professor Dalton. The revelation of Gio's role doesn't stay contained for long, rippling outward to Dante Falconeri, who learns the full story in a heated exchange that tests the limits of his detective composure. Dante, balancing his badge with fatherly instincts, receives the update from a trusted source just as he's wrapping up a shift at the PCPD, his face hardening as he processes how his son's innocence got caught in this crossfire of youthful indiscretion. Struggling to rein in a surge of paternal rage, Dante storms through the precinct hallways, his outburst echoing off the walls as he demands answers from anyone involved. His voice laced with the raw pain of a man who's seen too many family members suffer under the weight of Port Charles' relentless drama. This emotional eruption isn't just personal. It underscores Dante's internal conflict between professional duty and fierce loyalty, potentially straining his relationships within the force while fueling speculation among colleagues about whether this could lead to an internal investigation into the lab security lapses that allowed such chaos to unfold. Meanwhile, across town, Laura Collins channels her mayoral fire into a blistering confrontation with Professor Henry Hank Dalton, cornering him in his cluttered university office amid stacks of research papers and flickering computer screens, boldly accusing him of orchestrating a framed job against the vulnerable Rocco. Laura, with her background in politics and psychology, pieces together inconsistencies in Dalton's account of the break-in, pointing out how the professor's overly detailed claims of deliberate sabotage don't align with Rocco's clean record or the lack of concrete evidence, suggesting instead a motive tied to covering up Dalton's own experimental shortcuts in the lab. As her voice rises in righteous indignation, a crowd of students and faculty gathers outside, smartphones at the ready to document every heated word. turning what could have been a private clash into a viral spectacle that risks tarnishing Laura's carefully cultivated image as a fair and composed leader. This public display not only amplifies the stakes for her campaign, but invites deeper analysis of academic integrity in Port Charles, where power plays often masquerade as scholarly pursuits, leaving Laura to navigate the fallout with her trademark resilience. As the dust settles from Laura's bold move, Lulu Spencer seeks solace in a heartfelt chat with Carly Spencer at the Metro Court, her words tumbling out in a rush of worry over Rocco's precarious legal bind that could land him behind bars in the notorious Pentonville. Lulu, haunted by her own history of personal upheavals and custody battles, pours out her fears that traditional legal routes won't suffice, proposing radical steps like pulling strings through underground contacts to ensure Rocco's safety and freedom. Carly, ever the strategic survivor with her own tangled ties to the criminal underbelly, absorbs Lulu's desperation and floats the idea of enlisting Jack Brennan, the enigmatic ex-agent whose shadowy expertise in bending rules has saved more than one life in Port Charles' turbulent waters. Their discussion delves into the moral gray areas of such alliances, weighing the short-term relief against long-term consequences. As Lulu grapples with whether to take the reins herself or trust Carly's network, ultimately forging a pact that could redefine their sisterly bond amid the chaos. Over in a dimly lit corner booth at Sonny Corinthos' favorite haunt, Rick Lansing levels with his old adversary turned tentative ally, confessing that the original plea deal with ADA Justine Turner explicitly excluded any felony indictments or prison sentences for Rocco, framing it as a minor mischief charge at worst. Sonny, his piercing gaze fixed on Rick, absorbs the details with growing suspicion, his mind racing through the syndicate-like betrayals he's navigated for decades, questioning aloud how a straightforward agreement devolved into this nightmare for his grandson. Rick, caught between loyalty to the law and mending fences with Sonny, admits his bewilderment but offers no silver bullet, prompting Sonny to escalate by summoning Justine for a face-to-face interrogation where he demands the truth behind what he perceives as a calculated double cross. His tone a mix of controlled menace and grandfatherly protectiveness that hints at the explosive alliances yet to form. In the wake of that tense summit, Rick turns his reconciliation efforts toward Alexis Davis during a quiet coffee meetup at Kelly's Diner, where the clink of mugs underscores his earnest apologies for past grievances, aiming to rebuild bridges as he does with Sonny. Alexis, her journalistic instincts sharp as ever, probes Rick's intentions with skeptical wit, but softens slightly upon hearing his commitment to family redemption, especially in light of the Rocco saga exposing systemic flaws in the justice system. Their exchange evolves into a deeper dialogue on forgiveness in Port Charles' unforgiving social circles, with Rick sharing vulnerable anecdotes from his legal career that mirror Alexis' own battles, laying groundwork for a potential partnership that could sway the tides against Justine's office. Later, Alexis convenes with Felicia Scorpio in a discreet park bench huddle, where Felicia lays out irrefutable evidence, dismantling Portia Robinson's fabricated alibi for the night of a pivotal event, complete with timestamps and witness statements that unravel the carefully constructed narrative. Felicia, drawing from her pie expertise, honed through decades of digging into Port Charles' underbelly, details how Portia's timeline inconsistencies point to deliberate deception, possibly tied to protecting personal secrets amid the hospital's high-stakes environment. Alexis, absorbing the intel with her prosecutorial eye, analyzes the implications for broader investigations, noting how such lies erode trust in key institutions like GH, and ponders the ethical dilemmas Felicia faced in uncovering it, strengthening their alliance against mounting corruptions. Speaking of Portia, her world tilts during an unexpected encounter with Curtis Ashford at the hospital cafeteria, where she misreads his tentative overtures as a desire to salvage their crumbling marriage, now complicated by the revelation of her pregnancy. Portia, wrestling with the emotional whiplash of their separation and her professional demands, internally debates the viability of reuniting. viewing it as a risky proposition that could expose vulnerabilities in her role as chief of staff. It soon becomes clear that Curtis's softened stance stems from external pressure, specifically Stella Henry's meddlesome advocacy after she pieced together the baby news through overheard conversations and family gossip, pushing for reconciliation with her characteristic blend of tough love and traditional values. This dynamic forces Portia to confront not just her feelings for Curtis, but the intrusive influence of extended family on intimate decisions, highlighting themes of autonomy versus obligation in Port Charles' interconnected lives as she steels herself for the conversations ahead that could reshape her future. Elsewhere, Trina Robinson shares a charged moment with Kai Taylor at a quiet overlook near Drew Kane's residence, teetering on the edge of spilling a crucial confession about their whereabouts during the fateful shooting that has the town in grips. Trina, her artist's soul burdened by the secrecy, weighs the relief of truth against the peril it could unleash. But Kai, pragmatic and street-smart from his own guarded past, firmly steers her back, emphasizing the dire stakes of implicating themselves in Drew's unfolding mystery. They were together at Drew's place that night, drawn by an innocent study session that turned ominous, yet Kai insists on mutual silence to avoid becoming pawns in the larger whodunit, reminding Trina of the ruthless investigators circling and the potential for ruined reputations. This pivotal talk underscores Trina's growth from naive student to cautious young woman as she nods in reluctant agreement, their bond deepening amid the shadows of unspoken fears that promise to haunt Port Charles' elite circles. Next, we will learn about the shocking twists brewing in Port Charles that could spell the end for the notorious Henry Hank Dalton. As the drama intensifies, this scheming professor stands on the brink of disaster, far more vulnerable than heavyweights like Drew Kane thanks to his lack of deep-rooted ties to the town's iconic families, making him the perfect candidate for a dramatic exit in a classic whodunit mystery. Fans are buzzing with speculation as clues pile up, pointing to a web of motives and mishaps that could erase Dalton from the canvas forever. Let's dive into the escalating tensions and pinpoint the prime suspects who might deliver the fatal blow. The stage is set for a chaotic unraveling, with GH spoilers painting a picture of Dalton's impending doom amid a storm of betrayals and bad blood. Picture this: the professor, known for his ruthless experiments and manipulative games, has alienated nearly everyone in his orbit, from grieving grandmothers to ruthless tycoons, turning his every move into a potential trigger for violence. Unlike entrenched players who benefit from layers of protection through family alliances and shared histories, Dalton operates as a lone wolf, his expendability amplified by his outsider status in Port Charles' intricate social hierarchy. This isolation not only heightens the stakes, but invites opportunistic strikes from those he's crossed, transforming routine encounters into life-or-ending confrontations. As the week unfolds, subtle hints in upcoming episodes suggest that his arrogance will finally catch up, pulling him into a vortex of suspicion where no one is above reproach, and every alliance frays under pressure. At the forefront of this brewing catastrophe is Mayor Laura Collins, whose world is spiraling into distraction and despair, positioning her for an accidental yet fateful collision with the despicable Dalton. Spoilers for the week of November 17th to 21st reveal Laura in a fragile state, her mind clouded by personal losses and political battles, as she navigates the bustling streets of Port Charles behind the wheel of her sedan. The motive runs deep: Dalton's vile scheme to frame her beloved grandson, Rocco Falconeri, for sabotaging his clandestine lab, a hub of unethical research that threatened the community's safety, has left Laura seething with justified rage, her protective instincts clashing violently with his smug indifference. Imagine the scene: Laura, eyes blurred by tears of frustration after a heated confrontation, accelerating through a dimly lit intersection without fully registering the shadows ahead, only to feel the sickening thud that shatters her composure. Yet, this isn't mere happenstance, it's the culmination of weeks of simmering resentment, where Dalton's taunts about Rocco's guilt have pushed Laura to the edge of her emotional limits. her usually steady hands trembling on the steering wheel as she grapples with the weight of her mayoral duties and family loyalties. But Laura isn't the only one with a score to settle. Sidwell emerges as a chilling enforcer in this tale, his patience with Dalton worn thinner than a frayed rope ready to snap. As a powerful figure with shadowy connections and a zero-tolerance policy for incompetence, Sidwell views the professor as little more than a disposable irritant, a glitch in his otherwise meticulous operations that demands swift elimination. GH teasers highlight Sidwell's explosive temper flaring midweek, perhaps during a clandestine meeting in an abandoned warehouse on the docks, where Dalton's latest blunder leaking sensitive data from Sidwell's network ignites a fury that echoes through the fog-shrouded night. Sidwell, ever the strategist, wouldn't dirty his own hands. Instead, he signals his loyal underling, Pascal, a hulking enforcer with a reputation for silent efficiency, to handle the dirty work. Envision Pascal lurking in the alleyways, his face obscured by a hooded jacket, waiting for the perfect moment to shove Dalton into harm's way, ensuring the deed looks like an unfortunate accident rather than a calculated hit. This move wouldn't just rid Sidwell of a pest, it would send a resounding message to anyone daring to undermine his empire, reinforcing his dominance in Port Charles' underworld while tying up loose ends with ruthless precision. Adding fuel to the fire, Laura's bold public standoff with Dalton serves as a ticking time bomb, her unfiltered threats echoing through the crowded town square and drawing unwanted scrutiny from passersby. In a moment of raw vulnerability, Laura corners the professor near the waterfront park, her voice rising in accusation as she demands justice for Rocco's tarnished name, oblivious to the smartphones capturing every heated word. This impulsive outburst, born from a mother's fierce defense of her lineage, paints her as unstable in the eyes of onlookers, including opportunistic journalists hungry for scandal. Meanwhile, the looming election results hang like a guillotine, with whispers of an upset victory for the fraudulent Ezra Boyle, a silver-tongued con man whose campaign promises mask a history of deceitful dealings that could upend Laura's administration overnight. As the votes tally in a tense live broadcast from the Metro Court ballroom, Laura's face crumples in defeat, her dreams of continued leadership dashed, propelling her into a haze of grief-stricken driving through the rain-slicked roads. It's here that Fator foul play intervenes, with Pascal emerging from the gloom to orchestrate Dalton's untimely tumble directly into her path. A masterful ploy that buries two birds with one stone, neutralizing the professor's threats while ensnaring the mayor in a scandal that could derail her career and legacy. If this deadly setup unfolds as predicted, the repercussions for Laura could be devastating, thrusting her into a nightmare of legal battles and public vilification that tests the very foundations of her resilience. Sidwell's cunning orchestration would achieve dual devastation, permanently silencing Dalton's meddling while framing Laura as a reckless driver with a vendetta. Her political foes like Boyle circling like vultures ready to exploit the chaos for their gain. The professor's body, sprawled in the aftermath of the impact, would become a symbol of unchecked ambition's perils, his lab's dark secrets spilling into the open as investigators comb through the wreckage, uncovering vials of experimental serums and encrypted files that implicate him in broader conspiracies. For Sidwell, this coincidence solidifies his control, eliminating a liability without direct fingerprints. Yet it risks exposing Pascal's involvement if a single witness recalls the enforcer's shadowy presence near the scene. Laura, haunted by the blur of headlights and the echo of Dalton's final gasp, would face not just the trauma of the accident, but the erosion of her hard-won trust among constituents. Her tears in the car a prelude to a deeper unraveling as she questions her own judgment in the heat of distress. The plot thickens dramatically on November 20th, when spoilers tease a jaw-dropping revelation that shatters Laura's fragile peace, forcing her to confront the horrifying possibility that her vehicle has claimed an unintended victim. In the quiet hours after the crash, Laura pulls over on a secluded side street, her hands shaking as she processes the fleeting image of a body tumbling across the asphalt. her mind racing through the implications of what she's done or been manipulated into doing. This discovery isn't just a fleeting shock, it's a pivotal turning point, amplifying her existing grudge against Dalton into a personal abyss of guilt, where memories of his false accusations against Rocco replay like a tormenting loop, blurring the lines between accident and subconscious wish fulfillment. As sirens wail in the distance, Laura's sobs fill the confined space of her car, her mayoral poise crumbling under the weight of potential manslaughter charges that could strip her of everything she's built. The emotional toll deepens her isolation, straining her bonds with family like Kevin and the Falconers, who rally around her, but can't erase the stain of suspicion that now clings to her name. Compounding the crisis, previews capture a distraught Laura weeping uncontrollably in her vehicle, her sanctuary turned prison as the reality sinks in, while the ever-vigilant Nathan West stumbles upon incriminating evidence just yards away. Nathan, the dedicated detective whose sense of justice has always burned bright, arrives on the scene, perhaps drawn by a routine patrol or an anonymous tip, his flashlight beam illuminating tire skid marks and scattered debris that scream foul play. The something nearby, he uncovers a fragment of Dalton's jacket, smeared with blood, or a discarded tool from the professor's lab ties directly back to the mayor, painting a damning portrait of intent over accident. This doesn't bode well for Laura. Regardless of her innocence, the optics alone could ignite a media frenzy, with headlines branding her as the vengeful leader who finally snapped, eroding public faith in her leadership and inviting federal probes into her handling of the Boyle election fallout. Nathan's involvement adds a layer of irony and tension, his reinstatement to the PCPD fresh off a suspension for bending rules in pursuit of truth positioning him perfectly to lead the investigation, his conflicted loyalty to Laura clashing with his oath to uphold the law. In this high-stakes whodunit, the question lingers: has Nathan's timely return to the force been orchestrated by destiny or darker forces to cuff the mayor for what could be labeled a homicide? As Port Charles reels from the potential loss of Dalton, the fallout promises ripples through every corner of the community, from Sidwell's shadowed empire to Laura's political throne. Fans, weigh in: could this be the spark that ignites a larger conspiracy, or merely the tragic end of a villain who outlived his usefulness? Stay tuned as GH delivers more pulse-pounding revelations that keep us guessing who pulls the strings in this deadly game.